Hi guys, it's Nick, the ASMR nerd, and welcome to another episode of Relaxing Reviews. Today I've got another mechanical keyboard in for review, but this one has something that sets it apart, and that is its unique aesthetics. As a matter of fact, the primary reason that I was drawn to this board and ended up requesting one for review is the way that it looks. This board that we're looking at today is called the V500S Ice Crystal, and I think that's a very appropriate name, as you'll see shortly. This is a 10 keyless board from a company called Rapoo, and it uses Rapoo's own branded brown switches. It sells for $50 US, and as I mentioned, its most notable feature is its unique aesthetics. These crystalline-like acrylic keycaps that are somewhat translucent, and its striking white and silver color scheme. So the folks over at banggood.com were kind enough to once again send over a sample for review today for us to take a look at. And if you like what you see and you'd like to pick up a V500S of your own, there is of course a link down in the video description as always. So without further ado, let's take a look at Rapoo's V500S Ice Crystal mechanical keyboard. So here we have Rapoo's V500S Ice Crystal in box. And as you can see, it is a reasonably attractive box. It's actually quite a bit more showy than the last few keyboards we've had through here. Right on the front is a nice big picture of the product, and you can see what I mean by its unique looks. It's got this beautiful white and silver kind of color scheme going on with these crystalline acrylic keycaps. And it looks really clean, and I'm hoping that the product itself will live up to the promotional photos, the product photos. We shall see. But in terms of the packaging, it's this kind of matte blackish gray, which looks alright, with this kind of ambiguously digital honeycomb pattern going on in the background. We have the product name, you can see on this side here, V500S, in a sort of like holographic foil, rainbow foil, which catches the light. I guess it's not rainbow really, but I think it looks really nice. Says underneath it, backlit mechanical gaming keyboard. And there's a bunch of Chinese as well. It says down here, powered by Rapoo. On the other side over here, it's got some V Pro branding. Again, it's like a foil stamp, which is I think their whole line of keyboards. Some kind of sticker of certification, I think, from Rapoo, although it's in Chinese, so I can't tell. And right up here it says Brown Switch Edition. Maybe you can see that. Hard to tell. But that's good. They have that information right on the front. And here it says again, full mechanical keys in case there was any doubt, and spill resistant design, which is a nice plus. More V Pro branding around this side. You can get a really nice look at that. Foil stamped. Sort of rainbowy, isn't it? Branding there. Some miscellaneous information here, barcodes. That might be, yeah, look at that. It says right there. 1 year warranty. Yeah, 1 year limited hardware warranty, so that's great that they're upfront about that. And then, I'm going to turn this around to read it, but in a variety of languages it says package contents, wired keyboard, quick start guide, some system requirements, and yeah, that's what we've got there. Moving around to the back, we have a rundown of features. We have another nice product shot here. Another shiny V500S up at the top there. Let's give it a read. Crystal clear keycaps, beautifully crafted. The crystal clear keycaps are simple yet have a unique style. These keycaps with delicate and fashionable design provide comfortable typing. This keyboard helps you make things happen at work or gaming. A spill-resistant design. Spill-resistant keyboard design, which we already saw up here. So you don't have to worry about the keyboard malfunctioning after accidental spills. I guess that's good. Metal cover, full keyboard suspension design. Aluminum alloy surface cover, so they're talking about the faceplate. Suspension type keycap design. A simple metal style brings comfortable gaming experience. So they're just talking about this this standard design, the floating keys design. Individually backlit keys, white backlight with adjustable brightness, makes your keyboard cooler. Hard to argue with that. And full mechanical keys. High speed response with mechanical key switches, a single key life of up to 60 million operations. Your keyboard is durable. Alright, well, that covers all the bases, really. So, some pictures down here, including somebody tossing coffee on the product. Standard stuff for new generation players. Well, that's certainly me. I am a new generation player, let me tell you. So I guess this is for me. Maybe for you too. Okay, let's open it up. Overall, box and exterior packaging looks good. Better than good, actually. Better than most keyboards I get in here. So high marks there. Alright, so the first thing we're greeted with is a nice big ripped bag here, which is not a good look. And aside from that, pretty much nothing. Got the keyboard in the bag, some cardboard back here, but not much else. And the packaging is pretty sparse in terms of the protection for the product. We'll pull it out here, but I see no foam padding, no cardboard buffering, really nothing. Put the board aside for a moment, just to take a look at this. Yeah, there's nothing in here, no padding, which is a bit worrisome because the box turned up actually a little bit dog-eared, a little bit mashed up. Not too bad, but there's nothing really in here to protect the board during shipping, so hopefully our sample is intact. We have a simple quick start guide / user's manual here. Rapoo branding. It has English on the front, which bodes well for English inside. Okay, so on the back it says, yes, there is English here. It says, the device is provided with 1 year limited hardware warranty from the purchase day. See rapoo.com for more information. That's good. Always nice to see. Warranty information provided up front. And then it has a variety of keyboard shortcuts, information on what look like media keys. It looks like weirdly you can swap the WASD cluster for the arrow cluster and vice versa, if for some reason you really wanted to, by pressing function W. And it's the Windows key lock. Basic stuff. You can cycle through backlight modes with function and scroll lock. So, not a lot to see there, but it's functional. Has a few different languages. It covers the warranty. It's really all I can ask for. Alright, time to look at the board itself. Remove it from this tattered bag, if I can. So there it is, and what have we here? Oh. Surprise. We have a keycap puller. That's not that much of a surprise, really. Actually, it's pretty par for the course. Just a little red one. But nice to see nonetheless. Aside from that foam bag, which is very thin and ripped, the only protection afforded to the content is that cardboard slip, which is really nothing. Okay, so here we have the keyboard itself, and boy howdy, does it look nice. I think it looks lovely, don't you? Got those crystalline, like the ice crystal keycaps, which we'll take a closer look in a moment. They are very smooth. Very smooth. They're made of acrylic, which is not a material usually used for keycaps. Usually you're using an ABS or PBT plastic, but these ones are acrylic. And it's got this lovely silver and white color scheme going on that wraps right around the back and extends to the PVC USB cable. You can see we've got looks like a sandblasted type aluminum alloy backplate. Some V Pro branding on it, but other than that, I see no branding, so there's nothing distracting or unsightly, ruining the aesthetic in terms of branding. You can see that faceplate is reasonably thick, and like a few boards that we've seen recently, it's rocking these shiny, very shiny chamfered edges all the way around, these slightly rounded corners. I think it looks pretty nice. It's a good look. Although I do worry that these shiny edges are prone to getting smeary, fingerprinty, but the backplate itself is this nice matte texture that's probably going to do a pretty good job of repelling fingerprints and such. The legends on these keycaps are pretty clean and attractive. They're not overly gamery. They wouldn't stand out in an office environment, but I think they look nice. I like that. This board is reasonably solid. I think the literature states that it comes in at about 680 grams or so, so it's reasonably weighty. It doesn't feel hollow, and let's give it a little flex test. Yeah, that's stiff. There's no flex whatsoever there. It's probably from this nice thick plastic base and that thick aluminum faceplate. So I think this feels pretty durable, and let's take a closer look at these keycaps, because I think now is the time to do that. So these are interesting. Check that out. They are in fact double shot. You've got this acrylic shell, this sort of translucent acrylic cover with this white plastic underneath, and they're pretty thick. There is zero flex whatsoever, but they are very smooth and quite hard, I suppose, would be the descriptor. Like ABS and PBT plastics have a certain softness to them and a certain texture to them. That is not the case here. You can even hear it. It feels very brittle, if that makes sense, and totally smooth. Let's see if you can. Probably can't really see. It's hard to illustrate on camera here, but they do look lovely. They sparkle, they catch the light, and it gives them a sort of a gem-like quality, doesn't it? Like an ice crystal, perhaps. And the legends themselves are actually just cutouts. Look at that, you can see right through the cutout. So that's cool. Nice, sharp legends. And that's sort of an interesting technology that I've never seen before. Let's just see if we can pull off, let's see if we can grab the backspace here. Cherry style stabilizers, of course. We'll take a look at the switches in a moment. But again, it's just this cutout. Nice, thick, double shot acrylic shell caps with this very smooth texture. So in terms of the functional design of this board, it seems pretty good. The 10 keyless layout is, of course, a bit more compact than your full size. You've chopped off your numpad over here, which means it's a space-saving design. Fairly efficient, though not as efficient as a 75% board, but still pretty good. A little bit more room to breathe over here on the right-hand side of the board. And of course, It's got a fully standard layout. If you notice, we've got 1.25U keys all the way along the bottom. Nothing weird there. No strangely shaped shift keys or escape or backspace. Everything is the absolute bog standard ANSI layout, which is great because that means that keycap compatibility is excellent. This board should be able to take pretty much any caps you want to put on it. Although why would you when you've got these lovely unique caps that it comes with? But whatever. I mean, of course, you might want to put on your own things. The manual there was pointing out that it has media function shortcuts. With you can hold down the function key here, and then press, F whatever, F1 through F12 probably. But I am noticing that there are no secondary legends, so you can't really tell what the different shortcuts are unless you consult the quick start guide or you memorize them, and that's a bit of a bummer, isn't it? I don't know why they would opt to not include secondary legends. It's a very odd choice from a functionality perspective. Let's flip this thing over, take a quick look at the back side. Here we see a number of rubber feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anti-slip rubber feet in this gray rubberized texture, which feels very grippy. And of course we've got flip out feet with their own little rubber anti-slip feet, which is great to see. One on each side, some basic information on the back, certifications and such, nothing to speak of there. It's this sort of matte textured white plastic, but it's very finely textured, so it has this kind of silky look to it almost, I guess. Fine matte look. But I think that will do a great job of repelling fingerprints and scratches and all that. Don't think that will be a problem with this board. And at the bottom, 1, 2, we have these little drain holes, which are part of the spill resistance that this board features. It allows liquids to drain out the bottom if you accidentally spill your Mountain Dew in it or something. Spill your coffee. The cable, we'll just unravel it here. Take a quick look, is PVC wrapped, and you may have noticed that, oops, it is non-detachable. Boo. That is a bummer, but it's not a deal breaker, it's just too bad. But on the upside, it looks like it's reasonably lengthy. It's this nice matching white, and it's got a ferrite bead on the business end here, a Rapoo branded molded white housing, a little protective cap, and a gold-plated USB-A connector. So, while it's not detachable, it does look like a pretty decent USB cable. And last, but certainly not least, let's examine these switches here. So, Rapoo advertises its own branded switches, and I'm going to take a quick peek here. Yeah, so it is indeed branded, yeah, it's a Rapoo branded switch. These switches, as you can see, maybe you can see that Rapoo branding on there, I don't know, probably there. They have clear housings. We have these rectangular LEDs, which you can see on the top here, which are actually, I have read, better for diffusing light than standard spherical LEDs, at least on keyboards they are. So apparently they provide more even light distribution. So hopefully between those angular LEDs and these clear switch housings and this reflective aluminum alloy faceplate, we get some really nice backlighting, bright and even. As you can see, the stems are brown, and there is that tactile bump. You can hear it right there. Feels pretty good, but maybe a wee bit scratchy. Can you hear that? Bit of scratch to it, but actuation force feels as one would expect for a brown Cherry MX Brown clone. A little bit rattly, not too bad. Definitely some audible pinging there. I'm sure you can hear that too. But the action feels alright, so I do not know who manufactures these switches, if it is in fact Rapoo in-house, which I doubt. I know I always say that with these branded switches, but I always have this sneaking suspicion that they're manufactured, you know, by some OEM manufacturer and then just rebranded for each of these keyboard sellers, manufacturers, but I could be wrong. I have no proof. So, whatever it is, whoever it's from, we'll test it out. We'll see how it feels. We'll see how it types. But before we get to that, the next order of business is to take a look at the backlighting features on this board. So let's go take a look at the light. And here is the V500S ice crystal, all lit up. It's got this lovely white backlight. It's a very clean white light. And as you can see, it really kind of glows almost. The keycaps, as they're illuminated from the inside, they have this kind of luminous quality to them. And then the light reflects off those acrylic shells on each cap. It looks quite nice. I should point out, however, a couple of things. One, the caps lock key and the scroll lock key, when they are turned off, they do not illuminate. At first I thought maybe those LEDs were broken, but that's not the case. As you can see, if we press caps lock, when caps lock is on, it illuminates. When caps lock is off, it doesn't. And I can see why they would do it that way, but it does kind of mar the aesthetics slightly when you have caps lock off, because it just has this kind of gap over here. You can also see that the backlighting distribution isn't perfectly even. Our larger keys over here on the left hand side are a bit darker, as is the space bar, and the larger keys along the bottom, and that's probably just a function of LED density, I guess. There's more LEDs per unit area in the alphanumeric keys than there are on the modifier keys, because there's only a single LED per switch, right? Okay, very quickly we'll cycle through the lighting options, and I say quickly because there's really not much to see. If we hold down the function button and press scroll lock, we'll go from this solid backlighting mode to a classic breathing mode. It's a smooth transition from where I'm sitting, but as I've pointed out in past, it might look a bit flickery to you. And again, that's just a function of the frequency of the LEDs versus the shutter speed of the camera. So if we press function scroll lock again, we have no backlighting. We press it again, and we're back to solid. Those are literally the only backlighting options we have here. On, off, or breathing. The only other thing we can do is adjust brightness levels with function and then the arrow up or arrow down keys. So there are 3 brightness levels, this one being the dimmest, we have a middle, and then we have the brightest. Yep, that's it. So not a whole lot going on in terms of the backlight. It looks nice, certainly, but there are very few customization options. It's not quite the smorgasbord of choice that we see on some other boards, especially the RGB boards. With the lighting looked at, it's time to do some typing. So I'm going to type some passages, and you can watch and listen and get a feel for what it's like to type on this board. Right, so we've had a chance to look at the backlight. We've typed on the board a bit. You guys got to watch me type, you got to hear me type, and I've spent the last couple of weeks typing on this board, actually. So I have a pretty good feel for what it's like to type on, and I would characterize it as fine, as middle of the road, a fairly mediocre typing experience. The Rapoo brown switches that this board uses are going to be familiar to anybody who's typed on Cherry MX Browns. They feel pretty similar, but at the same time, a bit worse. They somehow manage to feel both a bit scratchier and a bit mushier than Cherry's MX Browns. And this results in just a somewhat unsatisfying typing experience. Again, it's not bad, it's just unremarkable, fairly middle of the road. On the upside, they all did appear to function. None of the switches were broken, and they seemed pretty uniform. The actuation force seemed pretty uniform across all the keys, right around that 45 gram mark that you'd expect for Cherry MX Brown clones. The other thing worth noting about this keyboard is that these unique keycaps, which we've taken a look at, impart some interesting typing characteristics to the board. And by interesting, I mean maybe not great. The acrylic material is more brittle, I suppose, than ABS or PBT. It's not as soft a material. And so when you're typing, it sounds a bit more clattery and feels a bit sharper somehow. It's difficult to describe, but the different material used in these caps does manifest in the typing feel. And on a similar note, the surface of these keycaps is very, very smooth. There is no grain or texture to it whatsoever. It's like a mirror sheen. And so, like other boards that have had fairly smooth caps in past. So the last board I reviewed, the Ajaz AK33, had fairly smooth keycaps. Not as smooth as these ones on Rapoo's V500S. And they just get grimy quickly. They just don't feel great under the fingers. You do get used to it, and I guess this is the price that you pay for the aesthetics, but it's worth noting that they just don't feel as nice as other keycaps that I've used. So that fairly well summarizes the typing experience on this board. It's not exceptional, it's not terrible, it's fairly middle of the road with a few caveats. Alright, my friends, here we are at the end of all things, the time where we summarize the pros and the cons of this keyboard. As usual, we'll start with the pros. The first thing that I really liked about this board is, of course, the aesthetics. That is this board's strong suit. It looks lovely with its crystal-like acrylic keycaps, that bright white backlight that shines through and reflects off the corners and angles of the caps and bounces off that lovely textured aluminum backplate. And they made sure that the color scheme matches throughout with that nice matte white back of the board and that white PVC USB cable. Overall, a really, really nice looking board. I also appreciate that this board is pretty durable. I think that the aluminum alloy faceplate and those double shot acrylic keycaps are probably going to last you a lifetime. I don't think they're ever going to wear out. Overall, it feels pretty solid, and the spill resistance is a nice addition as well. Last but not least, that 1-year warranty. Always nice to see. It's good to have confidence in your product and to know that the manufacturer has confidence in their product as well. There were, however, some drawbacks to this board as well, and we're going to list them now. The first is that non-detachable USB cable. It's not a deal breaker, but it's always nice to see a detachable cable in case you'd like to put your own on there. That said, at least this one looks pretty nice and matches the board well. Another drawback is that this board has no secondary legends. The whole F row has additional functionality. You can hold down the function key, and it provides shortcut keys, media keys, those kinds of things. But I found that I couldn't really use them because I could never remember which keys did what without secondary legends to remind me. The only one that I came to remember was the play pause button and the track back and track forward button. I did get there eventually, but why not have secondary legends? It makes sense to have them. Third and fourth drawbacks with this board both have to do with the typing experience. The first is that those acrylic keycaps with the smooth tops get grimy quickly. They don't look too bad. This is something I noticed, is that they never really look gross, but they just feel gross. And I don't know how you get around that with a board like this. I suppose you could go for like frosted acrylic caps, which would actually look pretty cool as well. But you lose some of that glistening kind of shine that this board has. Nonetheless, they did make for a less pleasant typing experience. And the fourth thing is those kind of scratchy, mushy switches. They were just not that great. Again, I don't know who the manufacturer for these switches is. They're branded as Rapoos, but I imagine that they're probably bought like as OEM products from some manufacturer and rebranded with Rapoo's naming on them. I don't know for sure, just a guess. But either way, they felt just a bit worse than your average Cherry MX Brown, which is a shame. Alright, last two things that I'm going to dock this board for. Number 5 is the limited backlight options. There's just not very much going on with the backlight. It's pure white, that's all you get. It looks nice, but there's no RGB to be found here. And there's only two, arguably three modes. You have backlight on, you have backlight off, you have backlight breathing, and then you have the brightness adjustments, of which there are not very many either. So very few backlight options on this board. And finally, at number 6, this is just a board that's light on features in general. You don't get any key rebinding capability, there's no per key backlighting, of course there's no RGB backlighting, there's no macro recording functionality, none of those kinds of things. There's no software with this board either, so it's just very light in its feature set. So where does that leave us with Rapoo's V500S Ice Crystal mechanical keyboard? Well, the $50 price point is a very crowded one. There are a plethora of mechanical keyboards in all shapes and sizes with all kinds of feature sets available for $50 US, plus or minus $5, we'll say. Many of them have RGB backlighting, many of them have software with full macro recording functionality, and many other functions besides. But none of them look quite like Rapoo's V500S. So the bottom line, I suppose, is that the V500S Ice Crystal is quite the looker, but it's light on the features. And unless you have your heart set on its aesthetics, there are probably better boards at this price point with a richer feature set. That said, I'm sure that the V500 Ice Crystal will find a happy home on the desk of somebody who has other hardware to match it. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of another relaxing review. Special thanks, of course, to banggood.com for sending over today's review sample. And of course, if you'd like to pick up a V500 Ice Crystal of your own, there is a purchase link down in the video description. I hope you found today's review informative. I hope you found it relaxing, and I look very forward to having you back here next time for another episode of Relaxing Reviews. Bye for now.